This is an HSC podcast hosted by students and for the students, where we talk about all layers of your well-being.
The views and expressions said in this podcast episode belong solely to the guests of this episode. They do not represent one structure or population as a whole. If you are concerned for yourself, a friend, or a fellow HSC student, please reach out to the care team at 817-735-2570, and they can help you navigate your crisis.
Welcome to the brand new student-led podcast from the Be Well team. I'm your host, Dhruvi Pradhan, a second-year student at the School of Public Health, and this is my co-host, Sophia Brockman.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm with the Office of Care and Civility. I serve as our student services specialist, so I do a lot of our compliance programming, social media management, and now I get to co-host with Dhruvi.
Welcome to Wellbeing Unlocked, where we explore the different aspects of well-being and how to cultivate a balanced life. I'm your host, Dhruvi, and today we're exploring the challenges and opportunities that come while navigating individual needs. Well-being is a continual process towards optimal functions through a dynamic balance among all aspects of an individual. The integration of these elements is highly individualistic and can shift and evolve to provide us with the tools to navigate life circumstances and the resulting needs of the individual. Today, we're joined by Lane, a student at the MedSci program on campus. Lane, welcome.
Oh, so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Lane Hughes. I grew up in DeSoto County, Mississippi before moving to DFW for college. So I finished my bachelor's in biology at UT Dallas this past spring. I'll be finishing up the MedSci program this upcoming spring in May, one and a half months from now. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be joining the TCOM class of 2028 starting in July of this year. Now, whenever I'm not in school, what do I like to do when I'm not in school? Honestly, I'm in school a lot. I feel like I try and squeeze stuff in during my lunch break, stuff that I can do during lunch. So I watch a lot of anime. Mm-hmm. I remember watching My Hero Academia right now, having a good time with that.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm playing Nintendo games. That's my shtick. So I'm playing through Phantom Hourglass, Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo DS right now. It's a fun time.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So before we dive into our main discussion, we start with icebreaker questions. So what is your word of the day?
I do not have a word of the day. Well, excuse me, I had to go think of one. I don't normally come up with one. But today we're going to say productivity. I was not productive this weekend, so we're working through that today. We've got exams this week.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. So what is your intention for the day?
So that's going to be kind of in line with the productivity, taking care of myself academically while also trying to knock out some of the tasks at home that I've been neglecting. Because I wasn't at home this weekend. I was visiting family. And so I need to go home and do laundry, do the dishes, and also listen to a couple of lectures.
That's kind of my to-do list today. I have to do the dishes too. I just left them in this thing before I came here.
Is it bad that mine's just to go home and watch Criminal Minds?
I do love that show. So
I'm jealous.
Yeah. Lastly, what is the one self-care item that you've planned for the day?
I'm going to go home and cook dinner for myself, and I'm going to eat said dinner, and that's going to be self-care. Usually I'll make something, but it's just whatever I have available or on hand. But like I have purchased things, and I am intending to go and make them, and I'm going to fulfill that plan, and then I'm going to have leftovers for the week.
Now, diving into our discussion about well-being, how do you define well-being for yourself, and how do you integrate financial, physical, and emotional factors in your overall well-being?
So my well-being is really, it's the way that I feel about the world and the actions that I take to adjust that, and like how I feel about the circumstances that I'm in. And I feel like well-being is kind of because you think well, and that's like, oh, that's a positive thing. Like you're being well, but like you can have bad well-being, and that's not good. But so like if I feel like my well-being is well, if I'm taking care of myself, then I can know that I'm actually enjoying, myself, the opportunities that I'm giving to myself, what I'm doing in my life, but also that what I'm doing is sustainable. And I think sustainability is really the biggest thing for that, because like it's a measure of how sustainable my current actions are for the long term.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And for finances and emotional factors, so this is the part where we edit things.
Take your time.
Yeah.
You're fine.
So I feel like with the factors that you listed, physical, financial, and emotional, they're all ways in which they're descriptors of their aspects of well-being. So like financial well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being. And there are certain actions you can take that will be good for one of those, but bad for the other. For example, something else that I like to do in my spare time is I like to go to the rock climbing gym. I like to go rock climbing. That's fun. It's good for my physical well-being. However, it is expensive. So it's bad for my financial well-being, especially since I have a gym that I can go to on campus that's already paid for through my tuition and the associated fees with that.
I understand. I think as a student, it's kind of hard to balance all the aspects, especially when you really want to pay attention to studying and not just like working part-time or getting those finances in. And also, I think we have to kind of manage even grocery-wise. Like, I feel like I really want to eat healthy stuff, but every time, honestly, it's like every time I look at all the, okay, let's get this, let's get this, let's get this. You add that to your list, and I was like, I'm paying that much. I can I afford to pay rent? I'm not sure. So, like he said, it's like once you're looking at one part of well-being, you're kind of not neglecting, but kind of, the other part of well-being just is not that great at that moment. Right?
Well, I think that's the juggle of being a student, right? Like when you're an undergrad and even graduate school, medical school, whatever, like there's so many different components, like, your time resources, your financial resources, like you said. I mean, like, you don't have much time as, like, your parents to work traditional 9 to 5 and make the money to sustain your life. But you also want to have, like, kind of the same hobbies that, these other adults who are in the professional world have. You want to be able to sleep. You want to be able to eat. And, yeah, it is, like you said, it's all contradicting each other at times. Or not contradicting, but conflicting.
Conflicting.
And I think it's really hard. But, yeah, I empathize with you. It gets better.
It does, right? I'm hoping. All right. So now, like, following up with that question, how do you navigate the balance? Like, I'm pretty sure that you with all your studies and all, like you said, financial, emotional factors, how do you balance those factors just so that you have, like, a peaceful state of mind?
So, yeah, it is really just a constant balancing act, and it's kind of difficult because we listed 3 aspects, but there's...
It's like 7.
Yeah, kind of.
If you want to get technical.
Is there like an actual list?
Yeah, so there's like spiritual, I consider it mindfulness over spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, financial, environmental. I'm like trying to, whole health.
The concept of the whole health, I see.
Yeah, like there are 7 different ones, and I'm forgetting one. I think education, maybe. It might not be that. But yeah, there's like the idea that, you have all these different layers of your well-being. You can even go off like, Maslow's hierarchy, a very generic way of looking at it. And all of those different metrics of your well-being are going to have different, they're going to reside in different areas of it. But yeah, fun fact.
Interesting. Didn't know that there was an actual list. But there's definitely... I mean, that makes sense, because I was thinking, I don't know, I feel like what I was going with was like smaller subtopics, but I feel like you could throw any of those subtopics into those. But you're right, it's kind of a balancing act, and one thing that'll be good for one aspect will be negative for another aspect. I think the biggest thing for me since I've been in college is kind of understanding that I have a limited amount of resources, and like I I should be my first priority, unlike my mental health, my emotional health, all those aspects that we mentioned. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, then how can I go and take care of other people as a future physician? How can I help my friends, help my peers, help anybody else, really, if I can't use my resources to take care of myself? And so I think the biggest thing for me has been learning that I have a limited amount of resources, but also that I shouldn't necessarily give all of those resources to people just because they ask for them. Maybe someone asks me to do a task and I already have 20 dozen other things that I need to do, and so I need to respectfully say, hey, I can't handle this right now. Can we do this in the future? Is there someone else that we can do this with? Can I work with someone as a partner or something like that? But really just doing what I can to make sure that I'm navigating these kind of, I hesitate to say conflicts, because it doesn't necessarily have to be conflict. It could just be someone sending you an email, basically, as I just said. But understanding that I have limited resources and I can't give them to everybody all the time.
Understandable. So when you mentioned limited resources, and when we talk about it in terms of, say, for example, financial, do you feel like do you budget? Like, this month, this is my budget for, say, groceries, and this is my budget to spend on myself, like for anything, maybe just like a trip to a cafe for a nice cup of coffee, or sweets. Hey, who doesn't like sweets? Or desserts, like things like that. Do you budget, like not just for financial, but also, say, for your physical wellness? Do you have that allotted time? That may be impossible for you right now, but do you try to follow that if you do have like a set time or like a set budget?
So that's something that I'm still working on. I guess finances is one of the most salient things for that. So I don't have a budget necessarily, and I've been to a lot of events from the Office of Finance, and the first thing they say is like, you need a budget. It's like, okay, great, cool. Still haven't done that yet, but I'll get to it at some point. But I feel like I tend to lean more towards, like, I'll leave from school and I'll say, oh, I could get a sweet little treat when I go home. And then I think about the $6 that would cost. And I can think, maybe not. I have juice at home or something like that. Finding a cheaper alternative that I can still fulfill that need that I'm looking for while not having to dip into my finances or dip into extra finances for it.
I actually kind of experienced that yesterday. I was in the library. I'm like, I feel like some ice cream. And I go outside to the Java corner. And I was like, I might just grab like a bar of ice cream. But then I'm like, that's $3. Do I need to spend on ice cream? I can probably go home and have some yogurt. That's a healthier choice. But then 2 minutes later, I was like, you know what? I feel ice cream, so I'm just going to get it. And then when you look at your credit card bill, you're like, I should not. That ice cream, I regret that now.
But then, see, sometimes it's like, okay, so yes, that was a hit on your finances, but like your emotional health. Like,
I was just about to say, I was like, I know I'd see the ice cream charge and I'd be like, but it brought me so much joy.
Exactly. Like, it was worth the $2 or $3. And every person has their specific budget line, or they have a limit where, like, okay, this is too much. I'm spending too much here. But it's okay to spend money on things that give you joy, not too much, depending on your personal financial situation. But, you get a lot of benefit from those. Some people can, and that can be really beneficial as well.
Sometimes those are like those little sweet treats, as people call them.
Yeah.
Like, they just, like, they're what, keep you from, like, going crazy at the end of the day. Like, when you've had just a really crummy day, or, like, you got out of an exam and you're like, I could cry right now. You're like, what would solve this? And it's like, a pretzel. I'm going to find a soft pretzel somewhere.
No, I get that, because, like you said, yesterday was like a real tough day, because we have these internship things coming up that we have to submit. You're like, you know what? I'm going to close the laptop, go get myself an ice cream. And that did make me happy, so yes.
Yeah, one of my favorite tips I learned when I was an undergrad was how to treat myself like a toddler. And it's like, okay, on those days when you feel like just kind of throwing a tantrum, it's like, what do you need right now? And it's like, are you hungry? Do you need a nap? Do you need to take a shower? Like, what is wrong with you? And just kind of like, it's almost like it's parenting yourself. And so it's like, hey, you do this one assignment, you can go get a bag of gummy bears and it'll be okay.
That would be so good.
And that's like, I still do that. Like, it's just something, treating yourself with kindness and softness that like, you're not going to get from other people because they don't care. Yeah. They don't want to sit there and be like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
They're also wanting the bag of gummy bears.
They probably do. But like you said, it's nice to feel like, that you do deserve this. And I think it's okay for us to feel that you don't have to keep thinking about all the different kind of restraints. Like you have limited resources, but it's okay to go, spend some of it on yourself.
Yeah, it's not even like you have to deserve it.
Yeah, you
like
don't
have to earn it.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think like a lot of us do that I think I should do this first to earn that treat. Or I should do at least, I only deserve it if I finish this. And I think that kind of takes a larger toll on us. Because maybe you're not in the right mind to do it at that time. And you're doing it just because you want the treat after.
Well, it's also like signaling to your brain like you don't get rest or a break until you're like at your lowest or like you're completely depleted. And so like those sweet treats are great reminders that it's like, no, like I need a break right now before I hit the wall. And then I can come back, finish it stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you ever like noticed any intersections or connections between your physical health and emotional well-being that, that you're surprised or that you didn't really, that came out of the blue, but it's really important to you?
Yeah, so I think, I was thinking about this question earlier. I feel like the example that I came up with sort of ties social health into emotional health because I feel like I thrive off of the energy of being with people. Like I like going and sitting down and chatting with people, much like we're doing now, with folks who I, know and actually enjoy talking to. I do enjoy those kinds of interactions and I feel like they benefit me emotionally. And I feel like that kind of in my college years has been tied into my financial health a little bit because there are sometimes, and this has happened, I think, maybe day one of freshman year all the way up to now, and I'm sure it'll continue. But somebody would say, oh, let's go get Raising Cane's or something like that. And I'd say, oh, that sounds really good. But I am really close to my amount of money that I need to have for food this week, so maybe I shouldn't. But if I spin it as, oh, I'm paying for the food, but also to I'm paying for time to go and socialize and build myself back up, then that makes it a little bit easier for me to say, okay, yeah, I'll go do this because I'm paying whatever the amount is for a box combo, but I'm also getting to sit and chat with my friends for however long. And I think it does suck that there aren't that many places where people can just go and hang out anymore. I think it's the people refer to it as like third spaces.
Yeah.
Like home, work, and then where do you go past that? But I mean, people do that in the real world all the time, even outside of university. I think bars are an amazing example of that. Like people go and they'll pay for overpriced food and drinks, but really they're sitting there chatting with their friends and hanging out. I mean, there's so many sitcoms about this kind of thing. I was a big fan of How I Met Your Mother.
I was just about to say, I was like, How I Met Your Mother,
yes,
Seinfeld.
Exactly.
I was a huge How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Friends had the coffee shop. I haven't seen a lot of Friends, but I'm sorry. Okay.
We're going to have to pause and Lane's going to have to go binge watch.
I apologize. I have to say it again. I watch a lot of Friends, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just like you're paying this money for food and drinks, but you're also getting to socialize with all these people. And that adds to the benefit of it. That makes it more worthwhile for me. And that's why whenever people say that, I'll go along that same train of thought. And again, sometimes it's like, no, I really can't. Not right now. But it's good to socialize with people, for me, at least. And I'm sure that applies to plenty of people, and some people it doesn't. So, your mileage may vary, but it's definitely something that works for me.
Yeah, but like you said, there are not a lot of these third spaces that you can actually just sit and hang out for like a longer period of time without tapping into your finances a lot. And I feel that that's changed over the years. That you used to be able to do that before, and now it feels like you're just kind of trying to adapt to what's happening around the world too. And then as a student, I feel like sometimes it's hard to, because even in your student life, you kind of see that change. That, maybe last year I could do this just for this much, but now I can't really do that just because things have changed. So I think, does that take a mental toll on you, that you've seen differences as a student? Maybe that, you could do that previously, but now, even though it's just been a year, you can't do it anymore because things change. Everything around you changes. So does that take a toll on you?
I don't know if I would have ever had thought about it as taking a toll, but yeah, I do kind of see it. I feel like I have this sense of longing of oh, I miss doing this kind of thing back when I was in undergrad. And I still have it to some degree, but a good example of this actually, so when I was in undergrad, I lived on campus, walked 10 minutes maybe maximum to get to all of my classes because I lived right on campus. And now I still live 10 minutes off campus, but I have to drive the 10 minutes to get here. And so I'll hang out with some of my friends in the library, but then I'll say, okay, I have to go home, and then I have to drive home. Actually, we just got the North Texas weather alert or something like that, so I'm not going to be able to stay tonight because I need to drive home and make sure that I can get home safe. But it's different when you're not just living as close together. And I'm actually moving a little bit further away from campus, so I'm moving in with my partner this summer, and that's so I'm going to be farther away from campus than I was previously. So I feel like I'm going to see that even more.
I think that's something you brought up, an interesting point, because when you're a kid, you hang out at the park or outside. In high school, it's the mall. Undergrad, it's on campus, and then graduate school, when they're graduate institutions like this, where it's just 4 buildings and it's nothing else.
Yeah.
There is nowhere to hang out. And yeah, I was a remote student, so I felt super isolated. And then none of my friends live in Texas necessarily anymore. And so it was just me with my partner tapping on his shoulder every day, you want to play now? Do you want to hang out now? And so, and I remember I would talk my coworkers' ears off, and they'd be okay, my shift's done, and I'm okay, you're leaving me. I'm gonna have no human
interaction.
Yeah,
I feel that, because now I'm so close to graduating, and I live with 3 other girls, and I feel after that I'm just gonna lose contact with almost everybody, because no one stays close by anymore.
Adult friendships are hard.
They are so hard.
Very hard. Just crying. I'm just gonna cry on the podcast.
It's okay. They can't see you.
I know.
You wanted a video, huh?
Yeah. It's just me sobbing. But yeah, I think that's something in the next few months, I will have managed to see all of my out-of-state friends. Funny enough, that's just how life ended up working out. And I get so excited.
Yeah.
I'm a little kid, and I'm yes, my friend's coming back.
I know. So you look forward to it, and you get. I sometimes talk. I talk to my partner so much. So I am so excited for this. And then I call, even if I'm not here, and I go back to, stay with him over the weekend, and I'm constantly on phone with, my other roommates. He's you're here, right? So stay here. Where's your attention right now? So I'm but, it's just, we're so used to, seeing each other's faces every day, and even sitting in the library the whole day. That's just it. We constantly need to be hey, what you doing? That's it. Hey, what you doing? What you up to? And he's can you not? Sorry.
Yeah. Do you find your friendships change from undergrad to now? You're more friends with your classmates, or you still try to make those out of school connections?
Okay, so I can interpret that in 2 different ways. So friendships that I started in undergrad and still have, those friendships have changed, but it's again because those people aren't as close as they were before. So I have folks who are still in undergrad. I have folks who are still in undergrad. Actually, one of my baby freshmen is running for student government president right now, and I am so proud of them. That's insane. But so I'm going back to visit this week. But so they're about an hour away. But then I have other friends who live either in Mississippi, where I grew up, or they're in other parts of Texas, or they're in other parts of the country. I've got one friend in Boston, one in Seattle, just all over the place. Oh man, he's in Vegas too. I have another friend who just got a job offer somewhere. I don't know where he's moving to, but I'm super excited for him. And I try to keep up with all these people, but it's hard because you can't just go and knock on their door. You have to like set up a call time, and then I have to say, oh, okay, well, I'm free on Monday from 7 to 9. And they say, oh, I'm free only at 6:30, so we can't do that. You got to schedule the times for that. And I feel like that's working for me now, but it definitely takes effort on both sides to make or keep those connections going. And that's something that it just takes effort on both sides. And if you don't have it, then those can kind of fizzle out. And I try not to let that happen necessarily. Now, as far as friendships from like individual friendships from undergrad to individual friendships in grad school, honestly, I feel like the style hasn't changed as much. I've still found people who I vibe with pretty well, and it's not. I think what's cool about it is that now it's not, oh, they just happen to live down the hall. It's we're driving, we're going to the same place every day, but also like I like you as a person, and I would love to continue hanging out with you, and I found a couple of people like that, and it's really cool to kind of find those. It's just really cool to kind of find those people. And so I am reaping the benefit of being close to them now. But with MedSci finishing up at the end of May, well, actually, we're finishing in about a month now. But with MedSci finishing up in about a month, we're all going to kind of scatter. And then I'll be starting again at TCOM, and then the whole cycle will repeat. But yeah, they definitely have changed. It's just kind of, it's different.
That's what they call it's like relationship by proximity or something like that, where it like talks about like, you know, when you're in like school and then like college, like it's the people who are in your classes with you, it's the people you see every day. I remember like graduating high school and I was like, oh, like this chick, like she and I, like, you know, we're tight as anything. Never heard from her again. And it's like, cool, like, I'm good. I'll find somebody else. And so it is like when that does keep happening, it's like you said, like you have to also put in effort. You can't just rely on other people.
So now that you mentioned that you're going to now start TCOM, right? After May, after you graduate in May. And then TCOM
he gets the summer off.
He gets the
They're
summer.
giving him the summer off.
They're giving him the summer off. But do you think like your approach to balancing these different aspects is going to change as well now that you're kind of, because MedSci I think is like completely different from TCOM, and your hours are going to vary, and what you're going to, like, I think you as your life as a student is going to change. So do you think like even your approach to balancing these aspects will change?
I'm going to say that I don't know, and at the same time I do know, and the answer is yes, I will be changing in some capacity, but that's really like I just feel like statistically I have to, right? You know, from little freshman Lane going up to now about to have his master's degree Lane, I've changed so much. And you could look at those rates of change from like year to year, freshman to sophomore to junior, and so on. I was maybe not a different person, but I just changed. I grew, and I found stuff that worked for me, stuff that didn't, and I don't know. That's kind of led me to where I'm at now. And I know that so actually MedSci and TCOM. So MedSci is like fully didactic, but a lot of our classes are pretty similar. I was actually just talking to someone today who was like, yeah, one of the TCOM students was looking over my shoulder, and I was like, we just had that exact same PowerPoint slide. Like, we get a lot of the same academics from the same professors. Of course, the TCOM at TCOM, they go more in depth, and there are plenty of differences. But with those differences, so I'm definitely going to change because of that, but also just, you know, the continuous march of time. Things are going to happen that I'm going to need to react to and change to. I mentioned earlier that I was moving in with my partner, so now I'm going to have to plan for a 30 to 40-minute commute versus a 10-minute commute. I've got family who just moved into town. But so like that's stuff like that is going to happen in other people's lives that is going to affect me just through the kind of ripple effect. And I know that things like that are going to make me change. I'm gonna grow as a person.
You know, when you talk about growing, I'm always somebody that I'm like, you got to grow with the times, like you said. And, you know, like I think back to like, you know, undergrad a lot where I'm like, you know, freshman year did look so different from senior year. And I feel like senior year I was so much more like calm and mellow. And then like you jump to like your first year of graduate school and I was like, oh no, I don't have anything planned. And then like even now, like getting to graduate and kind of relearn those hobbies that I really enjoyed.
So, are you someone that welcomes change? Like, are you, like, you know, are you someone that kind of adapts to the times? Or, like, there are some people who don't like change?
Yeah,
And who want to, like, who will push against it and be like, this is how it is and this is how it's going to be.
There are definitely some. It's not, I would say that I'm pretty open to change when it comes to things. One of the things that I do for my academics, and it's because I talked to the CAP office and they're like, you need to do this, is that you need to have the ability to pivot if something's not working for you. So if you're studying a certain way and you're actively not passing courses, then you need to not study that way and change it. But some people are like, oh, well, this is the way that I've been doing it for years and years and years. So, I mean, I can use myself for an example. The way that I studied for undergrad would not fly here. Absolutely not. No way. But I changed what I did, and now I'm here. I'm doing better. I still have room for improvement. We all have room for improvement, but I changed up the way that I was doing things, and I'm doing better because of it to match the environment that I'm in now. Now, there are some things where I'm like, this is fine. This is maybe not great, but it's something that I'm willing to work with, or I'm okay with it. We talked about physical health. I would love to be someone who goes and works out more. It is not something that I do. I enjoy it whenever I do it, but it actually requires me sitting down consistently, making time to go out and do it. We over the summer, we had a group of students in the MedSci program who would go and play basketball. I'd never played basketball before. I think I played horse once when I was younger, but I've never played like actual 4-on-4 offense, defense, all the other stuff. I've been watching it recently, and I've been getting into it in the past couple of years, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do this. I have the stamina of, I was about to say a child, but a child has more stamina than me. Like I just can't run around for that long. But I did enjoy it. And that's not to say that I'm not changing, that I'm not doing it, but that I know that I should, but it's okay that I'm not going out and actively trying to pursue all of these different things. I know it works for me. I just need to do it in the future, while in the meantime, I'm planning how to mitigate stuff that's more relevant to me, I think.
So what are some of the challenges that you've experienced when you navigate your needs, and how have you like overcome them?
So I talked earlier that you don't need to give your resources away to everyone who asks for them. I think that that's kind of one of the challenges that I've had, is like sticking up for myself and realizing that I don't need to do that, and that it's okay for me to respectfully and professionally say, I can't do this thing you're trying to do. I can't give you this energy or this time. Now, there's a difference between just being rude to somebody or just ignoring emails. But, you know, if someone sends me an email and says, hey, can you help me out with this? And I say, no, in my mind, I mean, of course, we all have thoughts in our head that we don't necessarily say out loud. But people send me things into my head, I'll think, absolutely not. No way. Zero. And then I'll get on my computer and I'll say, I don't think that I have the bandwidth to handle this right now. Maybe X person could help, or something like that. I think learning to stick up for myself in that regard. And also, I have a bad habit of volunteering for things. That I say that as I'm sitting on a podcast that I volunteered for. I am happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, but I have a bad habit of volunteering for things without, maybe just saying, oh, I've done this before, I'll do it again. Or maybe without thinking about like the context of when I'd be volunteering or how the logistics would work for that. So I think this happened in undergrad where we would have, we'd have scholars days where potential students would come in And I'd say, oh, yeah, I'm good to work that entire Friday. But also that Friday morning, I had a major exam that was going to make or break whether I was going to get an A or a B in the class. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I should have been volunteering for stuff there. But, you live and you learn. Now, it's different if someone blatantly disrespects your needs, because there are people who I'll send the email and I'll say, I am unable to handle this right now. Usually it's not usually people who email me with requests, if they have them for whatever reason, are pretty professional about it. But there are times in my personal life where people will say, hey, I need help with this. And I'll say, I can't do this. And they say, I really need help with this from you specifically in this one way. And I don't know. Usually people are willing to compromise, and sometimes they aren't. And in those cases, I have to think about, is it worth it for me to continue to responding to this person? Is it worth it for me to give my energy to this? Because a lot of that can lead into, I think that the biggest one is your emotional health, or for me at least, has been my emotional health can drop. Because if I say no to somebody and they say, I really needed your help with this, how dare you not help me, whatever, then that makes me feel not great. And then that leaks into other parts of my life, and I can't do what I need to do outside of that. So then I think, okay, is it worth it for me to interact with this person, period? And sometimes it's not. And there are people who I have reached out to me with stuff like that, and now we just don't necessarily talk anymore. And it's not again, not being rude, not being angry or anything, just understanding what my needs are, and this person not being respectful of those.
Mm-hmm. And boundaries are such an important part of just your well-being as a whole. I mean, you talked about financial boundaries, like saying I can't actually go out and spend this money right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe next time. Or physical labor. If somebody's like, I need you to help me move apartments this weekend. You're like, no. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, and it's just having those boundaries. I mean, I remember, and it's all growth. Everybody's on a different, plane of existence, essentially, with it all. And so some people, like you said, they'll take the rejection. It's not even rejection, they'll just take the no very healthy. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, let me ask somebody else, or let me just do it myself. Mm-hmm. Then you'll have other people who they'll just pester and pester and pester. And it's like, okay, we lose contact then. Mm-hmm. It's like, you lose me for future endeavors and help, all because you couldn't respect this one boundary I had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You do. And then actually, I think it's better for your mental health too, like you said, especially emotional, but also just being at peace with your boundaries too. Like, you're not going to bend them because someone is not respectful of them.
No, and I think people often miss that, boundaries actually protect the whole of well-being. I mean, even your relationships, you have to have boundaries with friends, because otherwise, the other person might not realize they're trampling on them if you're not voicing them. Mm-hmm. You're not saying, hey, I need a moment today. And so, I mean, they're helpful for all parties. They're not punishments. I hate when people are like, boundaries are punishment. No. Yeah. A boundary is something I am doing in response to your action. Mm-hmm.
I like how you said it that way. It's like it's in response to your action. Mm-hmm. I mean, this boundary would probably or may not have been in place if you had been respectful anyway.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You can't be like, oh, you can't speak to me like this. It's, I'm not going to stay in this conversation if this is how you will, speak to me or behave. Mm-hmm. Or, if somebody's like, I need you, to help me move apartments this weekend. It's like, okay, I only have an hour on Saturday to help you with this. And if they're like, well, I need more, you're like, I only have an hour. You either get that hour or you get nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you navigate, difficult periods of transitions, like your exams, relationships with your family and your partner, or financial strains when you're prioritizing your well-being?
So there's this, I like following cooks on Instagram. I see their little reels and they say, oh, here's a 10-minute meal for whatever random thing. And I'm like, wow, that looks so good. Mm-hmm. But a lot of things that these chefs do is they do prep work where they essentially cut up a bunch of vegetables, 30 onions or something at the start of a night. And then by the end of the night, they use all the onions, but they save time by doing all of that prep work at the start, which allowed them to focus on other things. And I think the same thing can be said in this situation when trying to navigate these difficult periods. For we'll say exams, for example. Every class gives you the syllabus at the start of the semester. Whenever I get my syllabi, I dump them all into my Google Calendar. I put classes down as one color, and I put homework and exams down as one color. And then I have these set periods that are usually it starts like a week before the exam, and I say I have an exam due in 1 week or something like that. And so that's a time where I know, like, okay, I need to focus on exam. I need to not focus on, maybe doing my laundry can take a back seat, or maybe this other overarching thing can take a back seat. The same thing goes with finances. I know I mentioned that I don't necessarily have a set budget right now, but that's a good thing that you can do for that by like setting a budget for yourself. I'm just parroting the financial aid office here. I promise I will do it at some point. But I'm imagining Sean's face in the background right now. Like, he's staring at me. He's like, get a budget. Love Sean. He's great. But no, so you can plan for when mishaps do happen, if you can dedicate money to an emergency fund, or you can just like grow a savings account. And I know that doesn't necessarily apply to us as students who have little income outside of student loans right now. But, there are ways that you can do that. I think relationships are a little bit more difficult because you can't just say, I mean, they're so interpersonal, like it's between you and one person. But if you're friends or your partner or your family, that's like 50 people, maybe not 50. That's a lot of people. But, you have to set that boundary with each of them. So my partner is also in grad school. So she's finishing up the second year of her PhD program right now. Oh. Yeah. And so with as much stuff that I'm going through for my time in grad school, she is also going through it. So she understands, hey, if I have an exam tomorrow, I shouldn't go out the night before necessarily. And I can offer her that same respect. So we went apartment hunting 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we went apartment hunting 2 weeks ago, and we had a full wake up bright and early Saturday morning, run through the entire day, go and do stuff. And then Sunday, we stayed at home, worked, because she had a 10-page paper and a 40-minute presentation due the next day. And that's just how it is. But since we're both going through it, we understand it. We can respect that boundary that each of us has. And because we also know that, like, that's part of our professional identity, and that's excuse me, that's getting us to a point that we want to be at in the future, and we're trying to be supportive of each other in those endeavors. Family, since they don't necessarily know what you're going through, it's a little bit more difficult to say, oh, well, I have an exam, so I can't make it to this person's wedding, this person's birthday. These are the sacrifices that we make, really, for being in the positions that we're in.
And I feel like it's relationships. When it comes to relationships, that's something that you can't really control because it also depends on what's happening at that point in time. But like for things that you can control, like your exams, your financial issues, I feel like even if you plan in chunks, it's okay. You don't have to plan out the whole year. Even like you go by monthly, a few months at a time, I think that helps too. Mm-hmm. Even when you want to like budget, not just for financial resources, but even your time. Just managing it by chunks instead of getting overwhelmed by looking at your whole like syllabus at one time. I mean, like, oh my God, I have so many assignments due. You could just maybe plan it out for 3 months is what I take. Let me plan out the first 3 months, and then I think that helps you be consistent.
Okay, so it's good for me, for academics, I'm the same. So whenever I mentioned the syllabi, I dump all of my syllabi in automatically, and then I'll get emails every day that say, ooh, new OCC event happening on, today's April 1st, so new OCC events happening on April 15th. Okay, boom, April 15th, 1 p.m., written down, got it, boom, bam, done. And then in 2 weeks, I'll think, oh, I guess I'm going to this now, and then I go, and it's a great time.
Mm-hmm. So looking back on your experiences, what advice would you give to other university students who may be struggling with the the same, struggling with balancing these different layers of their well-being?
Oh, that's a hard question because I don't know, that's like it's different for everybody on what best works for you. But I think the most general answer would probably be going back to that flexibility and being able to pivot if something's not working. So if you're doing things and they don't work, stop doing them and do something different. And that's so generalizable. Like everybody says, like don't do bad things, do good things instead. Actually, I can give an example. So something that I've been trying to do recently is increasing the diversity of my diet. So I will go to the grocery store and we'll use bananas. I like bananas. I'll go buy bananas. And I'll say, okay, I have 5 days in the week. I'm going to take a banana for breakfast every day. So I'll buy 5 bananas. And then one morning I'll wake up late and I'll say, oh no, I did not grab a banana. So I'll have an extra one. And then the next morning I'll get breakfast somewhere else. And so I'll say, okay, I'll have these 2 extra bananas. And then unfortunately they're heading towards banana bread territory because they're starting to go bad. And I'm thinking, okay, banana bread time. And then I forget about that too. So then they're just bad and I can't eat them anymore. But that happens for a lot of fresh produce that I use. I'll think, okay, I'm going to use this for a recipe, and then I just forget about it because I've got so much other stuff going on. But so one way that I found that I can incorporate fruit into my diet is to, in essence, treat myself like a toddler. And I've been starting incorporating canned fruit more, like peaches, pears. Target has mangoes. I've never eaten a mango like fresh before. Like I just don't have mangoes, but they've got them canned, and so now I eat mangoes like once or twice a month. And it's canned, so it doesn't go bad. And if you store it in the refrigerator, then it's cold and it feels like it's good. And it's so weird to open my refrigerator and be like, there's a can of peaches in there. But then I'll think, ooh, I could really go for a cold can of peaches. And then I'll just eat that with my dinner, whatever it happens to be. So maybe I have a slice of leftover pizza and then a can of peaches, and it's you got carbs, you got protein, you got your fiber, you got your fruits and veggies. But yeah, so in that sense, that was a problem that I was having, and I found a way to essentially keep the benefit of having fresh fruits while also solving the problem of me being forgetful about them. And so I think going back to the generalizable topic of doing good things is good, but also maybe finding unique solutions that incorporate multiple aspects of things that you maybe wouldn't think about. So like, again, solving not having fresh fruit and being forgetful. I didn't think those could necessarily go together, but they do. There's plenty of, for every number of problems, there's an even larger number of solutions necessarily. And those are all, like, those can be unique to each individual. What works for me won't work for either of you necessarily, or maybe it will. I don't know if y'all are looking for some canned fruit recommendations. There's not that many canned fruits, but they are there. But yeah, no, so definitely have the ability to pivot and be open to creative solutions. And if you do find something that works for you, roll with it.
To his canned fruit solution, I have frozen fruit solution.
Oh, yes.
I get frozen fruit because I'm like, it stays in the refrigerator, it doesn't go bad, and you still can have it in your, I don't know, like a dessert with your yogurt, as a smoothie. So you still have fruit in your diet. Because I'm like, I was the same. I used to buy fruit and I'm like, oh, fresh fruit. It's good to have fresh stuff. But I feel like sometimes it's just life happens and you forget. And you have assignments or you have an exam and you're like, I just don't have the time to even cook with any fresh produce. So it goes bad and then you feel bad because it went bad and you spend that much money on it. So I'm like, okay, that solution did not work for me. So now I just buy stuff frozen. Like, it's in the refrigerator. It's not going to go bad. And when you want to cook it, just keep it outside to thaw. You'll be fine.
Financial aid even, you can pivot easily with their resources too. They don't just have budgeting. They got a debt crusher. They have how to save up for a big purchase. I know one of the divisions on campus does Smart Dollar, and that's a really great app. Even CAP has so many different resources that are like just unique to the student.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you can come up with a solution, and our campus does have like a lot of resources that can help you come up with the solution. They don't necessarily like just give you an answer, but they will at least guide you to reach that answer by yourself. Something that I think works for you as a person, and not just like a generalized, hey, do ABC just to do this.
Yeah. One thing that I really liked, I visited the CAP office last semester when I was having some concerns with the class. And the first thing they did was they sat me down with a learning specialist and they said, okay, what are our problems here? And when we talked through it, and they said, okay, it sounds like you've got the content down fine. You're just having issues with time management and like actually sitting down and studying it. And so they pulled out an Excel sheet. It was strange because it had all of my classes already done on, I think somebody had made a specific Excel sheet for that week or something like that. But they already had this Excel sheet, and they said, this is a mock schedule for Monday through Friday for your classes. And it had all of the things that were due, all of the classes that we were going to have. But then in between them, it had, okay, this is when I can take 2 hours to review the material that I just learned in class. This is when I can do Anki flashcards for this other material. This is when I can study for this exam. This is when I can have a break. This is when I can take a shower. This is when I can go to sleep. And it was like really in detail. And I didn't take the full-on Excel sheet, like planning my shower times necessarily, but for some people that really works for them. And I definitely got a lot out of that session with that learning specialist on how to manage my time a little bit better. And it's helped me succeed up to this point and will continue helping me do so in the future.
Well, thank you, Lane, for sharing your insights. Now that you're, going on a new journey as a TCOM student, I wish you all the best, and I hope you have like a great vacation. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Of course. Thank you all for having me again. I really appreciate any opportunity I can to contribute to my campus community.
Okay, and thank you to all listeners for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Remember to prioritize your well-being and practice self-care each day. Until next time, take care and stay connected.